All right, so let's quickly just do some quick introductions. I'll start out. I'm Grayson Gussa, chapter president for North Carolina. I've been in a unique role where my term was supposed to be a year, but it will end up being a year and 9 months by the time I leave office in May. COVID and had several people resign or step off the board throughout the process, so I've been a little bit longer than most. I'm just looking forward to meeting everyone in our surrounding chapters and hopefully seeing how we can collaborate together on some things. With that, turn it over to whoever wants to go next, introducing themselves.
I'll go. My name is Kathy Lariano. I am from the Florida APCO chapter. I'm the president-elect for next coming up in May, and I'll be in that role for 2 years as president. And I'm from South Florida in Coral Springs.
Hello, everyone. Hey, Kathy. This is Vonda Jones. I am the Florida chapter president. I'm in the Orlando area, and I have been in the role for a year or almost a year. And Kathy is my incoming president.
I'm Chris Cord. As of December 1st, I will be the Virginia chapter president. And kind of like I think Grayson was saying, I kind of got moved up. I was the vice president last year, and then our president-elect took a commercial position, can no longer serve. And I got promoted to president-elect, and I'm like, I just figured out what a vice president was doing. Now what I do. So.
Hi guys, Sonny Saxton, president-elect from Virginia as well. So nice to meet everyone.
Hi, I'm J.R. Webb. I'm the vice president of the Missouri chapter. I'm from Springfield, Missouri. And, unfortunately, Sonny's on this call, but, he had to go sometime. But
Nice to see you, sir.
but I'm on my second term as vice president of the Missouri chapter.
Everybody, my name is Zachary Dykes. I'm the president of Missouri. Kind of did it weird. I ran for a true term as secretary in 2019, and then this year decided to run for president, was elected with a small margin. So this is like month 7 of my term of 2 years. So.
Oh, hello, everyone. I'm Danny Murray of the Georgia chapter. I am the vice president. I'm also the executive council representative. I was elected as the EC in 2019, and in 2020, when Jonathan was elected president and no one ran for vice president, he appointed me to that role. So I'm in the middle of a 2-year term as vice president, and I was just reelected as the executive council.
Awesome. So it sounds like many of us have the same. We've kind of been thrown into a role unexpectedly or not in the time we were expecting. But I think that's what we do in our industry is we adapt and overcome, make the best of it. Jonathan and I just came up with a few topics. And I know there's a lot of topics on the agenda. Are there any certain, I want to respect everybody's time, are there any certain topics that everyone wants to cover in particular that we could start with, or just go in order?
Hey, this is William Tatum. I'm from South Carolina. First vice chair will take office as president in June coming up. One thing I'd like to see is anything anyone's doing with provider burnout for telecommunicators.
And I think that's a great segue. I can speak for North Carolina at this point. We haven't even talked about that, but I think that's something industry-wide. Is anyone else at the chapter level doing anything?
What was the question again about burnout? I didn't quite understand. Muffled.
Just curious if anyone has had any initiatives in place or if they're seeing anything with the blaming COVID for telecommunicators bailing out, or if they're uh, turning and burning for other reasons. Just what folks are doing to address it.
Thanks. I think for us, it's statewide that we're having the issue of burnout and people leaving. I think it's just industry-wide nationally of the profession. We're working hard in Florida to try to get us reclassified, to get some benefits, especially the mental wellness and workman's comp in that aspect. But we're trying again with a bill. But that's been the biggest struggle for many agencies, is how to solidify us as a first responder, so that people take pride in the position that they're in and want to stay, and to almost force the cities, counties, entities to have better pay, better benefits, and appreciate what it is that we do. So that's been the struggle. There's some counties that appreciate it, but they're not willing to pay. They're not willing to provide any of the same benefits. But hey, we love you, but we can't give you anything else. And that's where it's frustrating for us, as most of us PSAP managers or supervisors or whatever, is that, okay, that's all great and dandy, but at the end of the day, there has to be a little bit more than just saying it at this point. And that's where we're struggling as a state. That's been the biggest complaint from our representatives, our people that are part of our Florida APCO, is the retention and keeping employees and actually attracting new people that they're not going to sacrifice like we did. And maybe we were dumb and young and didn't care, but they're not going to do what we did. So
Yeah, certainly that's one issue too, is the generational gaps. The work ethics are different than some old timers, if you will.
yep, absolutely.
Yeah, one thing that North Carolina has done that it's not really been to support our current telecommunicators, but the state 911 board has recently done an advertising campaign based on something Washington did. I believe it's aired in 2 TV markets, pretty much just advertising jobs in 911. I think it ended last week, so we don't really have any numbers back yet, but I think that's a small step to at least bring awareness that the positions are out there. I'll be curious to see if it does lead to any new hires.
Yeah, and there could be opportunities for co-branding with other public safety professionals too, with fire, EMS, police, whomever, and just they may see one ad and say, that looks cool. I wouldn't want to do that, but hey, there's a telecommunicator job. I might want to do that.
Like us as an agency, we're trying to be more, as we fall under the police umbrella, is kind of solidify ourselves as a department within the city, not just fall under police, so that people understand what the profession is. Because a lot of them don't even know that this is an option to work for us as a PST for this. So that's something that we're doing, and that's where we are rebranding ourselves as a unit to make it as this is a public safety position that you can also serve the public. It is a first responder in our own little way in our city to try to attract people, because when they see police, because of how the culture is, some of them just don't want to apply because, I don't want to work for the police department kind of thing. That's kind of where we're at here.
Glad we're not alone. I was just curious. Thank you.
So one of the things Orange County, Virginia is looking to implement is they just posted the first draft of a wellness program manager. It's going to be for all county employees, but it's also going to coordinate peer and psychological support services for uniform public safety, including E911, and in times of crisis, use of force events, traumatic incidents, and so on and so forth. So it'll be interesting to see what happens if they can fill the position and what resources are available.
In Missouri, we've had a little bit of work towards CIST critical incident stress teams that are based on in the 911 world. We have one in my center, and also Zach has created something through our chapter, the Totes of Hope, and that's been Zach's deal, and it's gone over real well. And I'll let him explain it further. Basically, just comfort items that we can deploy to centers to try to help those folks out in any way we can.
Yeah, so in 2019, the board approved creating this Totes of Hope program. And really, we've just got totes stationed around the state in all of our regions. And most of our regional coordinator or regional ambassadors are acting as a coordination team. So following times of critical incident, whether that be a line of duty death for any of the primary services, traumatic calls or tragic calls involving children, because those are hard hitting for a lot of telecommunicators, unexpected deaths of coworkers, stuff like that. We'll reach out to the center and see if they would like these totes. Totes are just filled with like little goodie items. We call it items that'll keep your mind off of what you're doing, but they have to be work appropriate. So stress balls, some adult style coloring books, and everybody loves good candy. So the board has approved that we fill that tote up to $50 per deployment. And then we also give the agency who receives it an option to pay it forward and refill the tote for the next deployment. We've seen a lot of good come out of this, and we've gotten a lot of feedback recently that it's not necessarily the receiving the tote that does it, but the paying it forward seems to be almost therapeutic to the agencies who have received it. So honestly, I think as far as our deployments go, we've only been doing this for 2 years since October, and we've deployed 43 times. And I want to say that our restock is less than probably between a half and a quarter. We've had to restock. The rest have been paid forward. So.
Yeah, and I think that's a good program. That's a good quick segue. Shameless plug here. Member and Chapter Services is actually doing a webinar November 29th, I believe it is, on the Compassionate Care Initiative. And Zach is one of the presenters there to share more information on that program. So anyone that's interested, know that that is coming up 2 weeks from today.
What time is that?
Let me double check so I don't tell you wrong. I want to say it's 1:30 Eastern time.
Okay, thank you.
And there is a link to sign up for it. I can get that and share it with everyone.
Should also be in the chapter officers section of PS Connect.
Yes, that's right. Thank you. Forgot about that. And in that webinar, Maureen Wills from the Atlantic chapter, and then also North Carolina, along with Missouri, will be presenting on things that things that we've done for compassionate care. So moving on, we'll just start at where we had started in our agenda, chapter meetings. I know this is done differently from one chapter to another. Just was curious to hear how other chapters conduct their meetings. Are they monthly, bi-monthly, once a year?
For Florida, we usually have about 2 meetings a year. One is at the local level when we have our local conference, and then our other meeting is when we attend APCO International. Those are the 2 times that we have the open meetings. And then, of course, we have our board meetings on a monthly basis. And for the chapter meetings, we try and encourage people by, sending out notices, of course. And we try and do a raffle and things like that just to get the members to engage and be a part of the meeting. And sometimes it works. Sometimes we have low attendance.
In Missouri, we try to do like 3 a year. We do 2 at our local conferences. We host 2 conferences, one in the spring and one in the fall. We typically have a membership meeting at each of those. And then in the summer, we'll do what we call a summer summit, where we offer a full day of training, and then over lunch, have an hour-long membership meeting as well. Typically, again, not great attendance, but we do a hybrid to where we do like live in person and then stream it over Facebook. We had been doing a 3-way stream over Facebook, Twitter, and YouTube, and it wasn't cost effective for what we were getting out of it. So we're just doing Facebook currently, and then pulling the recording, adding it to our YouTube channel as an archive, and adding it to our website for an archive.
Yeah, and I will say this past however many months now, I think we've all had to reevaluate chapter meetings. I know for us, we still have been doing them bi-monthly on odd-numbered months. Our last in-person was January of last year, and we are scheduled to have our first in-person meeting again this coming Friday. So we've had over 80 people RSVP, so I'm excited to see how that goes. I'm a little bit anxious, but I think everybody's ready to be back together.
In Georgia, we have them twice a year, once in the spring at our spring conference. And then again, the fall at our fall workshop. We just had an in-person Labor Day week. And we had, I think the count was about 70 people there. And then the board meets quarterly, usually twice in person at each one of those conferences. And then we'll meet via Zoom once in the winter and then once in the late spring, early summer.
South Carolina is very much the same as Georgia. We have a joint conference with NINA in the fall. Each has their own independent business meeting, and then we'll hold a training session spring or summer, and have our other meeting there as well. Board meets quarterly or as needed. Attendance, anywhere from 50 to 75, depending on how much money people have to spend.
So Virginia, we have monthly board meetings. We meet that are virtual. We have 2 in-person meetings, both at our conference that's in the fall and then the spring NINA conference. And one of the things that I would like to see us, I think, get back to is chapter luncheons, where we do where we actually have, a luncheon hosted by the chapter and possibly sponsored by one of our commercial members, which is something that there was I think at the CCAM breakfast down in San Antonio this year, they're discussing that. So I'd like to see that and try to get some more general membership involvement.
Yes, traditionally we've always tried to do a luncheon with our meeting. We do a joint meeting with NINA every other month where we alternate back and forth whether who goes first or who goes second. And then there is a lunch. I think that it's a good draw to get people there. And then combining the 2 organizations, I think, also helps with our numbers. Surprisingly, even though we do meet 6 times a year, we tend to have, when we've been in person, 70 to 100 people. We just make an effort to move throughout the state, so it's not in one place every time.
Yeah, that's the other thing I'd like to start doing is to kind of start hitting different areas of Virginia. Just so the membership sees us, out and about, and more opportunities to get more people and different people involved.
And you're probably very similar to how we are in the western part of our state, smaller PSAPs and the mountain areas. They're the ones that always complain about not being involved. We've gone there several times, had meetings, even hosted a conference in Cherokee, and none of those agencies participated. So we do what we can, but just have
That
to.
was my first presidential crisis after getting sworn is that someone from the western part of the state doesn't feel like their area is being represented. So,
And it is difficult. I know that there are 1 or 2 seat PSAPs in that area, so it is hard for them to travel. But I think with the virtual meetings, we have seen a little more involvement, a little more, not tremendous, but I think it's helped. So I kind of mentioned how we do a joint thing with NINA. Does anyone else do routinely joint initiatives with NINA or other public safety organizations?
Missouri, our conferences are joint between the Missouri chapter of NINA, Missouri chapter of APCO, and our 911 Directors Association. The conferences are really the only thing that we jointly do unless we're working on a legislative task force.
We in Florida, we spoke with the NINA president, and we're hoping to do a joint conference. We haven't done one in a couple of years, but we're hoping to do one in 2023 maybe, because we've already committed to our local chapter conferences for the state for 2022. So we're excited and we're looking forward to putting forth that effort with NINA and doing a joint conference.
In Georgia, we're the same way. Our conferences are a joint venture under the banner of the Georgia Emergency Communications Conference is how it's listed. And same problems that you guys have had as far as getting attendance, where different parts of the states want to be included. So we have done our best the last few years to where our spring conference is either on the west side of the state or the east side of the state. And then the fall conference is either in the southern part of the state or the northern part of the state. So we're trying to hit all 4 quadrants to make sure everybody feels included.
Yeah, and I'm not sure how others are, but I know for us, I want to say our APCO chapter is over 1,500 members. Our NINA chapter, I think there are maybe 400 members. And I'm not sure how that relates to other states, but I know in North Carolina, there's a significant difference.
Yeah, I think we're pretty much the same in Florida. Our APCO chapter has a large membership. Our NINA chapter does have a good number, but they're not as large as we are.
I do have a question. Do you guys have any, with the joint conferences with NINA, do you guys have any MOUs and things in place with them on how it runs and things like that?
Yes, we do.
Yes, we do.
Only if it's bad, it's their fault. If it's good, it's our win.
We have MOUs and we have it's the GECC board, which it has co-chairs. One has to be from APCO, one has to be from NINA. The
Okay.
training committee for it, same thing, co-chairs, one has to be from APCO, one has to be from NINA. The treasurer for the GECC cannot be a member of either board. So just to keep everything 50-50 down the middle and as unbiased, for lack of a better word, as possible.
And Kathy,
Missouri is kind of similar to that. We have a conference committee as well where all 3 of the presidents serve as co-chairs along with the conference chair. And then there's an equal number of representatives from all 3 of our associations who serve on the various committees.
Yeah, and Kathy, I'll be happy to share our MOU. We actually just
Yeah,
did.
I was just gonna say, if you guys can share that with us, because we didn't have anything in place, but we wanna, when we get back together, that's our goal, is to have something established, but obviously the conversations have to start from now so that we can have it in place by 2023.
Yes, I know we went for 15 years without one,
Mhm.
and some issues came up along the way more recently. So both chapters agreed on the MOU, and it's worked out very well, I think, so far. Now, granted, we haven't been able to use it for an in-person conference yet. It worked well for the virtual conference.
Okay.
And that's kind of a good segue to our commercial. I know that commercial advisors in each chapter take on different roles. We were just curious what kind of roles they take on in the individual chapters. Are they voting members? Are they part of the executive board? Things like that.
We use them more in an advisory role in South Carolina. They attend the meetings, but we don't let them vote. We bounce ideas off of what they would like to see done for the other people, the vendor type roles, and they do not serve in our executive board.
And William, I'm not sure if Mitch has shared with you yet, but we are bringing on Gary as our executive council representative, or our commercial advisor as well. So we'll be sharing him now.
Laughlin.
Yes.
Cool. Yeah, that's cool. He's a great addition, man.
Yeah, we look forward to having him. I think he'll be good for both of our chapters.
He's got a pretty good expense account too. Just saying.
That helps too.
So Missouri, our commercial advisor, does serve as a voting member of our board. We recently changed that within the past few years. He's also he's also the commercial advisor for Missouri NINA and our conference committee. So it all works together.
And he pretty much, for the conference, he pretty much handles on his own the booth reservations and all the discussions with the commercial partners and sponsorships that help us with our conference. He pretty much handles that on his own with, of course, direction from the conference chair and such.
But I know that's a huge weight off of everyone else's shoulders to have that one person handling all that.
And he knows everybody, which makes it way, way easier.
Yeah, for Florida, we use our commercial advisor in the same capacity, and it works well.
So that does kind of also tie into sponsorships. Does anyone do any type of like corporate or annual sponsorship program, or do you specifically do it just for your chapter conferences?
For Florida, we do it for our chapter conferences.
Same in Virginia.
Same in South Carolina.
Same.
So I will say, up until this past year, that's what we had done. Our conference had always traditionally been in September, and we had it at the coast for like 10 years in a row and didn't have a problem. We had it in the mountains those 2 years, and both years hurricanes came in inland and we had to cancel or postpone it. So we opted to move our conference to May. And with that, we were not planning to have a conference in 2020 as that gap year before we started our next conference in May of this year. So our commercial partners came together and came up with I'm trying to remember exactly what they call it. It's an advisory council where we do have corporate sponsors that are corporate sponsors for APCO and NINA for both chapters. They pay $10,000 and they are recognized on our social media website, chapter meetings all throughout the year. And we have actually had really good feedback from them. At first, I wasn't sure how it would work, but we had 4 the first year, and then this year we had 3 of them sign back on. So if that's something you haven't looked at, I never thought it would work, but it has worked very well for our needs.
So kind of touching on that as well, all of our conferences, at least in the center part of the United States, kind of they're really close together as far as timing goes. Do you guys think it would be beneficial to create a calendar to where we can all, as we're planning out our dates, add on our state conferences to one calendar to where we can view and plan around that, to where we're not doubling up on conferences?
I think that would be great. I know that we went through that when we were looking to move to May. South Carolina and Virginia, I think your conferences have been in the past month or so. And I know ours used to be in September. The vendors always said it was like 3 or 4 weeks in a row, our 3 conferences.
Yeah, ours is October, South Carolina.
But Zach, to your question, I think that would be a great resource, not only for us, but also for the commercial advisors to have it all in one place if that's feasible.
Okay. With that said, I will create a shareable calendar through a website called TeamUp, and I'll email you guys an administrative link to where you can add your conferences in on that.
That sounds great. The next thing we discussed was chapter elections. I know that it's done differently in different chapters. I know I've attended one chapter where they have one meeting a year, and at that meeting, nominations are made for the first vice president, second vice president, and president. Pretty much all of the nominations are made right then, voted on right then, and you leave that meeting maybe as the new president. That was kind of eye-opening to me. I didn't really care for that. Just curious how others handle that.
Ours are done every September at the fall workshop. It's done so they're staggered. So that, for example, this year it was the executive council position, the secretary, and 2 of our board member at large. Next year it'll be president, vice president, treasurer, and then our other 2 board member at large positions. Nominations typically have to be in, or not nominations, but letters proclaiming your intent to run have to be in typically 90 days before the election. And then they're vetted and announced 60 days prior on PS Connect. We're looking to, because of COVID, we couldn't have in person last year, kind of like everybody else. So we, through one of our bylaws, we were able to do an emergency online election last year and found we had more participation in that than we ever had in person at a conference. So we're looking to do a bylaw restructure to where we do online in addition to in person. How that's going to work is a great question. Thanks for asking. Don't know yet. But hopefully that'll get more people voting and get more people involved is the plan behind that. In the case of, and this happened last year and this year, if people who were qualified for positions didn't run, then the president, Jonathan, had, like I said, he had to appoint me into this position last year. And this year he had to appoint a new secretary and 2 at-large members because we pulled our secretary from the at-large pool. So it's been a struggle to get people to run.
And that is a good point. Are other chapters having that same problem? I know that we've, for the past several years, have just had one person pretty much running for second vice president.
That's been pretty similar to Virginia's experience. This past year, we did elections for vice president, which is a yearly election, because the way Virginia is structured is you get elected VP, that's a one-year term, then you automatically move to president-elect, then president, then past president. So once you're in, you're set for the next 4 years. And then, so like this year, we did VP, secretary, and one or two directors at large positions. One of the things, and then we do, those opened in September, and then elections closed during our conference at the end of October. And then that's where the candidates or the winners were announced and were sworn in. There's been just some discussion about opening up the nominations earlier and giving the nominees an opportunity to campaign, if you will. Either, I'm not sure if we would open them early enough to hit the Virginia NINA Spring Conference, or just allowing them the opportunity to campaign during our conference in October.
So I'm glad to hear you say that. I know traditionally ours have always opened in May, and then the election takes place in August, and then would be announced in our September conference. And I always thought that was a long, drawn-out process. But it does give them time to campaign if they're not running unopposed, of course. So that's good to hear that you're thinking that way.
What we were thinking with the online is to open it up a week before the in-person. Typically, we're in person, we open it up for 24 hours for everybody to vote because everybody's there. So it would be where we'd open it up in person a week prior, online a week prior. And then maybe not close the online. This is the rub. Do we close the online? How do we track it? How do we know somebody's not voting twice? I don't think anybody would, but you never know. So those are just things we're trying to hammer out, because we have to be able to vote online next September. We've got to have that out to the membership by January so we can vote on that bylaw change in March. So that's currently a task we're trying to get figured out.
So in Missouri, the last two election cycles, we've done just straight online voting, and it seems to have worked really well as far as the logistics go. We're still having an issue getting like membership involvement in the voting. Like we've got our chapter membership is above 500, and during this last election period, we only had between 30 and 50 people vote. So, and that's with a repetitive campaign to try to get them to vote. So I don't know how the logistics will work with you trying to do two voting, but I do think that the online voting is a good option.
The online voting worked much better in 2020. The numbers from 2019, we had 5 times as many people vote online that we had vote at a conference with the ballot right there in front of them. So the online, we may decide that online is the way we want to go without the in-person. I'm of frame of mind, give the people who are there the opportunity to vote on the paper ballot, in addition to people who can't be there having a chance to vote online.
And I remember the days when I came on the board as a regional ambassador 10 years ago, maybe we were still mailing out 700, 800 ballots to every member with a self-addressed stamped envelope included. That cost was outrageous. And ultimately, people still didn't vote. They had it right there in front of them, didn't have to pay for a stamp, and they still turnout was very low. But going online has helped out tremendously. We found.
This
So
is
if I
Wanda
might,
from Florida. I just have a quick question. What mechanism did you use for your online voting?
So I think us and Georgia used the same program this year. I can send it to you. I don't remember the name of it right off the top of my head.
Okay,
But
yeah, if you could send that over.
it was very user friendly. We just uploaded our voting members to it, and it automatically sent them an email. And then you could set up reminder emails like a week before it closed, 2 days before it closed.
Okay,
It was very user friendly. So I'll send that.
perfect. Thank you.
In Virginia, we use Election Buddy for online voting.
that's what we
Election
used in
voting?
Missouri as well.
Yeah, Election Buddy.
Okay, thank you.
Hey, Grayson, this is Jennifer with Tennessee. I don't know if you're planning to send that out to the group, but if not, can I get that sent to me as well once
Okay.
you find the name of what you guys use?
Yes, I'll be glad to.
Thank you.
And I don't remember the cost right off, but I want to say it was like $80 to send 600 ballots out by email.
That sounds about right because we sent about the same amount, and Jonathan said it wasn't bad at all.
Yes, and it did all the work for us, which was even better.
So can I pose a question? What do you guys do to campaign for your membership to be active in the voting? Like, do you just use the included system, or do you do an email campaign or social media or all of the above?
Anytime there's any type of elections, whether it be the national elections that go on, our chapter elections, I hammer it in the monthly email I send out through PS Connect as executive council rep. Just hey guys, don't forget, this is your association. You are picking the leaders. Make sure you vote. Here's how easy it is. I mean, if there's any other ways to do it, I'm open for suggestions because it's getting almost to the point where you lead the horse to water, but he's just not thirsty.
Yeah, the only thing that as a chapter we do to promote the individual candidates is we have a listserv for the state that's actually a Google group, and each candidate is permitted to send out one email on that listserv promoting themselves. But again, going back to having most running unopposed for the last several years, that really hasn't been happening.
I can't tell you in the last, I could be wrong, and Jonathan can correct it when he comes on. In the last 5 years, I don't recall anybody having any opposition. If it has been, we've had 2 open board at large spots and 3 people run, but nothing contentious.
Yes, we've been the same way. And that's a shame, but we've gone through this long discussion. We don't want to just appoint people to positions just to appoint them. Don't want a warm body. We actually want someone who does want to do the work, but it's just a struggle finding that person a lot of times. So I'm going to skip over bylaws. One thing I wanted to kind of talk about, because it's something that we're having some issues with, is an annual financial audit. Our bylaws mandate that is done annually. It's taken a long time to get even individuals who would be willing to serve on that committee who aren't already on the board or weren't serving on the board at the time of the year that we're auditing. Do any of you have any methods or suggestions of how that's worked for you? So that silence is about how I feel about it. We're trying to have ours on Wednesday of this week. I'm curious to see how it goes, but one idea I just wanted to throw out, and I'm not sure if this would be something anyone would even be interested in, and it may involve bylaw changes for some chapters, but discussion about creating a regional agreement where, say, this year North Carolina would audit Georgia's finances and vice versa. Is that something that anyone would have interest in or even think would be a possibility?
I think it's a good idea.
Because I know our biggest struggle has been finding people who aren't directly involved with the chapter. Because if they are directly involved, then they're doing something else normally. And I'm not sure how that looks. I know each of us operate on a different fiscal year. I know ours is now June to May. Zach, I'm sorry, did I cut you off?
No, it's background.
Okay. And Danny, it may be something that our two chapters could look at trying and see how it goes, and if it does work, maybe share it with others. And that's something we can talk about with Jonathan.
Absolutely.
For Missouri, sorry, go ahead.
And I was going to say, a set of eyes who doesn't have directly any contact with it it's always a good thing. Kind of an unbiased look at it, especially when it comes to money.
Yes.
Yeah, for Missouri, I'll have to check our bylaws and see what it stipulates, but I wouldn't personally be opposed to us being included in that as well.
All right, so that's something we can talk about more offline. We had kept this COVID-19 for the very last because I think we could probably spend 2 hours talking about it, at least. But just specifically, how has the pandemic affected your chapter? Obviously, most of us have had to cancel events. What have you done to mitigate budget implications, and what is the future looking like right now for everyone?
This is Vonda from the Florida chapter. During the COVID pandemic, we took a pretty good hit because we were supposed to have APCO International. So APCO International got canceled, and this year actually, our Florida chapter conference got canceled as well. We did actually do a virtual workshop just to get some training in and get our members involved in that way. But outside of that, financially, we just took a hit because of the conferences being canceled. I'm sorry, we do have a conference scheduled for next year, 2022. We're hoping that it's going to be a go, seeing that everything's opening back up. So we, hope to build up again with that conference and then moving forward.
We were able to squeeze our March 2020 conference. That was about the time everything started. I think the world shut down the day we left Columbus. So we canceled our fall 2020 and our spring 2021 conferences. Fortunately, the places we had reserved and had contracts with allowed us to kick the can down the road, so to speak. So we were supposed to be in Athens this past March and we had to cancel. So they allowed us to move that to this coming up March. So as far as the GECC, the conferences go, we didn't take too big a hit because they did work with us on that. The chapter budget implications, we really didn't have any. If anything, it didn't cost us anything because we didn't go to Orlando, so we saved a little bit of money there. And everything else we did, we were able to do online. So we were very fortunate in that regard.
Yeah, and I had mentioned earlier how 2020 was the year we were already skipping a conference and had started that corporate sponsorship program. So that couldn't have been timed any better. That helped us sustain throughout the year. And like you said, on our budget, I think our expenses were only like 17% of what we budgeted for 2020. So, we didn't have the income as much, but we also weren't spending nearly as much. And then I think one thing we're struggling with now is going forward. Some people are fully comfortable with the online virtual conferences. Personally, I've been to enough of them. I'm over them. But I think we're going to all have to look at some type of hybrid option going forward. Agencies look at it. Why do we need to pay for travel and lodging when someone can stay here and get the same training? So we have to work on perks and how to advertise that. We've had several discussions and really don't have any good ideas at this point.
Large thing you need to hit on is networking, because yeah, you can get the training, but the networking is key. And your exhibitors, they need to network as well. And I mean, even if the networking isn't based on exhibitors, you can build yourself up for future growth at either your current agency or you never know who you meet. That's going to be key to your growth if you move another agencies. So I think it's important to hit on the networking aspect.
Yes, I completely agree with that. It's just getting the people behind the desks that crunch the numbers to agree with that. Right, so that's really all of the items that we had come up with. Are there any other topics that anyone else wants to talk about or has come up with your chapter? I know this past year has been, or longer than year, has been challenging, but I've been keeping in touch with Zach and Jonathan. I think we've talked about several different issues here and there, and I think having the working relationship with other chapters who are facing the same issues has helped out tremendously, at least for me. So we did want to open up a discussion if this type of meeting is something that we do want to do again in the future. If we do, how often do we want to do it? And then who to be included if we do it going forward.
I think it's a great idea, and I think anyone that's involved from that's on the pathway to be in a leadership role should be invited, be it the president-elect, the second vice chair, whatever whatever terms anybody wants to use. I think the top three at least should be invited.
Yeah, and for this one, not really knowing what to expect, we just did chapter presidents and president-elect or first vice presidents. But I think certainly, like you said, the more the better. Obviously, we're not going to have that much to discuss so often. So would something like quarterly be too often? Every other month? Any thoughts on that?
I think quarterly would be good.
I agree with Corley.
Yep, quarterly is good, and throughout contact information for everybody. If you had like a quick question just to bounce off a few folks, shoot an email to or something like that.
Yeah, I think that would be great. So to keep us on track, starting in January, would that be good for everybody?
Yeah, that would work for me in Virginia.
Absolutely.
That'd be good.
Okay. Well, I will get up with Jonathan. I know he was hoping to be able to join us today, but certainly had other obligations that were much more important. But
I'm not sure about the day of the week or whatever. I've got a standing 3 o'clock meeting on every flipping Monday. But you know, maybe a doodle poll or something to see if we move forward, what days or times will be best.
yeah, and I know Mondays probably aren't the best for most in general. But yeah, we can do a poll and go from there. And we'll go ahead and try to do that sooner than later so we can get it on our calendars, because I know if everyone's like me, your calendars fill up quickly with one thing or another. But I do appreciate everybody for coming out today. I think this has been a good starting point, and it's good to put faces with names. And I know we have the president to president meetings at the national conference, but there's just a lot going on during those meetings. So I think this is nice to be more of a regional group discussing things that are affecting us more. All right, well, with that, we are exactly at 4 o'clock. So if there's no other comment, we'll go ahead and close. But I do have some notes for some things to send out, so I'll send that out to everybody just so everyone has it. And then we will look for a date in January.
Thank you so much. Appreciate it.
Thank
I'll
you.
work
Take
on
care,
it. Thank-
everyone.
Sounds good.
Have a good afternoon.
Thank you. Have a great day. Bye.